Lauren Ashley, just 18 years old, full of music, laughter, and dreams, had her life stolen in a way that no one could have imagined. The most haunting part? The person who ended her story was someone she had once trusted with all her heart. Late one summer night, her father, Malcolm Ashley, received a call that would fracture his world forever. Lauren's bright red Jeep had been discovered abandoned in a parking lot near the city beach. But Lauren herself was nowhere in sight. Without hesitation, Malcolm rushed to the scene. With nothing but a small flashlight in hand, he combed along the shoreline, his heart pounding with fear and fragile hope. Each sweep of light across the restless black waves carried the desperate thought, maybe she's here. Maybe I can still save her. But the beach was silent. The water gave no answers. His daughter was gone. What few knew at that moment was that this disappearance was the tragic climax of a story that began years earlier, a love story between two high school sweethearts. What started as innocent first love had slowly unraveled into a relationship filled with jealousy, turmoil, and heartbreak. And ultimately, it ended in the most unthinkable way, with murder. Lauren had been born on the 1st of April, 1993, in Boston, Massachusetts. She was the only child of two teachers, Mary and Malcolm, who poured every ounce of love and pride into raising her. To them, she was not just a daughter, she was their entire world. From the beginning, they instilled in her values of honesty, kindness, and compassion, hoping she would carry those principles into every step of her life. But fate can be cruel. At just 18, standing at the threshold of adulthood with boundless energy and promise, Lauren's bright path was cut short. And in its place, a story of heartbreak and betrayal began to unfold. Lauren Ashley's life was never ordinary. Even as a child, she seemed to have more hours in her day than anyone else. She filled them all with music, sports, service, and laughter. After her parents divorced in 2006, Mary and Malcolm shared custody of their daughter. Although the separation was difficult, their bond with Lauren remained unshakable. She was their source of joy, and in turn, she seemed determined to make everyone around her proud. Lauren threw herself into nearly everything she could find. She sang in choirs and music groups, played tennis and soccer, joined the youth symphony orchestra, worked as a camp counselor, and even dazzled audiences as the lead in the musical Annie at the local arts center. Her petite frame, just 4'11", stood in contrast to her outsized presence. Wherever she went, her radiant personality lit up the room. Classmates adored her, not just because she was talented, but because she was genuine. When someone needed help, Lauren was there, offering her time, her energy, her whole heart. Her voice was her greatest gift. Strong, soulful, and unmistakably her own, it carried through school halls and community events alike. Becoming the lead singer of her high school, a cappella group wasn't just an achievement, it was a dream fulfilled. For Lauren, music wasn't just performance, it was connection, a way of reaching people. But her kindness reached further than her music. At only 12 years old, she traveled with friends to New Orleans to help victims of Hurricane Katrina. She would return twice more in the following years, showing that her compassion was not a fleeting childhood impulse but a cornerstone of who she was. Friends described her as the person you could count on. Teachers admired her leadership. Strangers felt uplifted by her warmth. Lauren had the rare ability to make people believe in good because she embodied it. At Wayland High School, her name was synonymous with involvement. Concerts, sports, community service, if something was happening, Lauren was there. She wasn't just present, she left a mark. To many of her peers, she wasn't just a student, she was a trendsetter, someone they wanted to be like. And it was there, in those busy high school years, that Lauren's path crossed in a new way, with someone she had known since childhood, Nathaniel Fuja. At Wayland High School, Nathan Fuja was the kind of student who stood out. Tall, athletic, and a star on the football field, he drew cheers from the stands and admiration from classmates. Yet, despite the attention he received from other girls, Nathan's heart belonged to Lauren Ashley, the vibrant, spirited young woman he had known since childhood. Their relationship blossomed in senior year. What began as stolen glances and whispered conversations soon grew into a 3-year romance. To many, they seemed like the perfect pair, the golden athlete and the radiant songbird. Together, they laughed, played sports, went on dates, and enjoyed the exhilarating, carefree days of youth. But beneath the surface, cracks began to form. Their love story wasn't as flawless as it appeared. Arguments crept in, turning moments of joy into cycles of tension. One day they were inseparable. The next, they couldn't stand to be in the same room. Breakups and reconciliations became a familiar rhythm. Jealousy hovered over them like a storm cloud. Nathan, admired by many, was possessive when it came to Lauren. At the same time, he grew resentful of the way she devoted herself to others. Friends, community, causes feeling as though he came second in her world. His temper, sometimes quick and sharp, often clashed with Lauren's desire for peace and independence. By senior year, Lauren was beginning to think more seriously about her future. College loomed ahead, offering new opportunities, new people, a new life. She wanted to chase her dreams without being pulled into constant fights or the weight of Nathan's jealousy. The relationship that once felt like everything now felt like a chain. Lauren applied to Elon University in North Carolina, eager for a fresh start. Nathan, meanwhile, was accepted at Trinity College in Connecticut, where he would continue his football dreams. To outsiders, it might have seemed natural that their paths would diverge. But for Nathan, the idea of losing Lauren was unthinkable. Her friends noticed the toll the relationship had taken. Together, they made a list, reasons why she should finally end things for good. His quick temper, his extreme jealousy, his aggressive behavior, even toward his own mother. Lauren listened, reflected, and realized they were right. On her 18th birthday in April 2011, she ended their high school romance. For Lauren, it was liberation, a chance to step into adulthood free from the constant cycle of pain. She later described it as one of the happiest decisions of her life. But for Nathan, it was devastation. What Lauren saw as a fresh start, Nathan saw as the end of his world. The breakup shattered Nathaniel Fuja in ways no one around him fully grasped. Once an energetic, disciplined athlete, he began to unravel. Football, the sport that had once defined his identity, no longer mattered. Practices were skipped, his fitness routine abandoned, instead of running laps or lifting weights. Nathan spent his days lying on the couch, distant and withdrawn. Friends who once saw him as the life of the party now struggled to recognize him. He stopped showing up, avoided their calls, and seemed swallowed by a darkness none of them could lift. Slowly, he turned to alcohol and marijuana, numbing himself daily. Lauren, despite ending the relationship, still cared deeply for him. She couldn't ignore the memories they shared or the sight of someone she once loved falling apart. More than once, she asked her friends whether she should reach out, whether maybe she could help him. Every time, they told her no. They feared that any contact would give Nathan false hope of reconciliation. By the summer of 2011, Lauren was ready to focus on her own life again. She had graduated high school, was spending her last months at home, and was eager to embrace the next chapter: college, independence, new adventures. To celebrate, her friends organized a big party under a tent, with nearly 150 students and recent graduates attending. Nathan was there too. He had been drinking heavily, and as the night wore on, he tried desperately to pull Lauren aside, to rekindle something she had already let go of. But she stood firm. She told him clearly to leave her alone. He couldn't accept it. His rejection turned into anger. He followed her around, trailed her through the party, and grew increasingly aggressive. At one point, He struck a tent pole so hard that the entire structure collapsed, scattering the crowd. The party never recovered. What was meant to be a celebration became a tense, ruined night. Later, Lauren confided to her mother how suffocating Nathan's behavior had become, how he simply would not let her go. She saw the anger in him, the bitterness that she dared to move forward without him. And while the weeks that followed seemed calmer, Nathan's obsession hadn't faded. It was only lying in wait. To prepare for college, Lauren took a summer job at a clothing store in the local mall. It was nothing glamorous, but she enjoyed the independence and the chance to earn a little money before moving away. On the 3rd of July, 2011, she clocked in for her shift at 10 a.m. Security cameras captured her arriving at 9:45, riding the escalator with her usual bright energy. Her shift ended at 6:45 p.m. Cameras again recorded her walking out of the mall while talking on her phone. She was planning to go home, change clothes, and then meet friends for a walk. It should have been an ordinary evening, but it became the last time anyone saw her alive. When she didn't show up to meet her friends, they immediately knew something was wrong. Lauren was reliable to a fault. She would always call if her plans changed. Her father, Malcolm, grew deeply concerned when she never came home. Trusting his instincts, he wasted no time. He reported her missing right away. Police responded quickly, faster than usual for a missing persons case. Within hours, they discovered a chilling clue. Lauren's red Jeep, abandoned at the Wantown Beach parking lot. Windows rolled down. Inside sat her bag and laptop. But of Lauren there was no sign. The discovery sent shockwaves through her circle of friends. That night, they gathered at the beach near the Jeep, sitting on the sand, watching the dark water, hoping she might appear. Fear clawed at them. But still, none dared to imagine the worst. Meanwhile, Malcolm rushed to the scene. The moment he learned about the Jeep, he sprinted to the shoreline, flashlight in hand, scouring the waves as if he could still pull his daughter back from wherever she had gone. He searched until there was nothing left to search, but Lauren was gone. Police began questioning her family and closest friends, searching for anyone who might have wanted to harm her. At first, no one could think of a single name. But as the questioning grew sharper, a familiar possibility emerged. Her recent breakup with Nathaniel Fuja. Lauren's friends were quick to defend him. Yes, he had been upset, even unstable. But dangerous? Capable of hurting Lauren? To them, it seemed impossible. The police weren't so sure. They knew jealousy, heartbreak, and rage were often enough to push someone over the edge. And Nathan, once the golden boy of Wayland High, was now at the top of their list. That same night, officers went to Nathaniel Fuja's home. He and his mother, Beth, spoke with police, offering an explanation that seemed, at least on the surface, reasonable. Nathan claimed he had been home the entire evening. He admitted that Lauren had stopped by briefly, but insisted she never got out of her car a short, awkward conversation before she drove off again. It was a thin alibi, but for the moment, it kept suspicion from settling too heavily on him. Still, investigators couldn't ignore the shadow hanging over him. The breakup, the public scene at the party, his growing isolation. They took note and pressed on. Then, at dawn the next morning, horror struck. A cyclist riding near a marshy stretch of road noticed something floating in the murky water. At first, she thought it might be debris, but when she drew closer, her breath caught it was the body of a young woman. Authorities were called immediately, and before long, the grim truth was confirmed. It was Lauren Ashley. Just 5 miles from town, she had been left in shallow water, her body tangled and silent. The discovery shattered the fragile hope that had carried her friends through the night. Many of them had spent hours on the beach by her abandoned Jeep, waiting, praying, convincing themselves she might walk up at any moment. Now, they were faced with the unthinkable. When the body was brought to shore, detectives quickly saw the cause of death, a deep slash wound across her throat. An elastic cord was tangled in her hair, grim evidence of the violence she had endured. She was only 18 years old. Her father, Malcolm, was asked to perform the task no parent should ever have to face. He had to identify his only child. Carrying his ID, he walked into the medical examiner's office, clinging to the faintest, most irrational hope that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't her. But when he saw her, that hope collapsed. The pain was beyond words. He had to call Mary, his ex-wife, and tell her that the daughter they had raised with so much love was gone. The news rippled through their small community like a shockwave. Friends who had once admired Lauren and Nathan as the golden couple of Wayland High could barely process the reality. How could this have happened? How could someone so vibrant, so full of promise, be silenced in such a brutal way? But as the shock settled, police began to look closely at Nathaniel Fuja, and the picture they uncovered was far darker than anyone wanted to believe. Investigators wasted no time. With Lauren's death confirmed, every detail of her final hours became critical. Security cameras showed her leaving the mall on the phone. Phone records revealed who she had been speaking to: Nathaniel Fuja. The truth was now undeniable. Lauren had gone to Nathan's house that night. It was the last place she was seen alive. When police returned to the Fuja home on the 4th of July, Nathan was gone. His parents claimed not to know where he was. That only raised more suspicion. Detectives quickly secured a search warrant and began combing through the property. What they uncovered painted a chilling picture. In the garage, they found bloodstains on the floor, on the doorknob, in the sink. Someone had tried to clean, but traces remained. An elastic cord, like the one tangled in Lauren's hair, was also discovered. The deeper they searched, the worse it became. In the basement, a black sports bag contained muddy sneakers. In the attic, officers found more shoes, blood-stained clothing, and boots caked with mud. When the samples were tested, the results confirmed everyone's worst fear. The blood belonged to Lauren, and the mud matched the marsh where her body had been dumped. Nathan's story was collapsing. He hadn't just seen Lauren briefly outside his house. She had gone inside. Something terrible had happened there. By the 4th of July, Nathaniel Fuja was officially a wanted man. He was tracked down at a relative's house in a nearby town. Just after midnight, the once celebrated football player was arrested and charged with the murder of his ex-girlfriend. When questioned, Nathan was cold, detached, and silent. He offered no explanation, no denial, not even remorse. For months leading up to his trial, he maintained that chilling stillness, leaving everyone, friends, family, the community, desperate to understand how the boy they thought they knew could commit such horror. But the evidence told a story that words could not deny. As investigators dug deeper, the image of Nathaniel Fuja darkened further. Details emerged that showed his anger and jealousy were not new. They had been simmering for years. Back in 2009, during one of his and Lauren's breakups, she had gone to a school dance with friends. There, she shared a dance and even a kiss with another boy. Nathan, finding out, stormed into the event. In front of everyone, he shoved the boy and threatened to slit his throat if he ever went near Lauren again. At the time, the incident was brushed aside as teenage drama. But now, in light of Lauren's murder, it looked like a warning sign that had been tragically overlooked. Witnesses described Nathan as increasingly unstable after the final breakup. He had withdrawn from sports, friends, even daily routines. His mother, Beth, desperate to help him, tried to get him into therapy. A psychiatrist diagnosed him with severe depression, possibly worsened by repeated head injuries from football. But Nathan refused medication, refused therapy, and continued spiraling. The defense would later seize on this diagnosis, insisting that Nathan had not been in his right mind when he killed Lauren. According to them, he suffered a manic break that left him unable to comprehend his actions. They painted the killing as a moment of insanity, not deliberate violence. But the prosecution saw it differently. They believed Nathan had lured Lauren to his house that night, knowing his parents were gone. He called her repeatedly, and when she finally came, his rage boiled over. The elastic cord, the deep slash wound, the evidence of cleanup, all of it, suggested planning, not madness. Autopsy reports showed more than just strangulation and a fatal throat wound. Lauren had defensive injuries, proof that she fought back, desperate to survive. Prosecutors argued that Nathan's calculated steps after the murder, hiding his blood-stained clothes, dumping her body in the marsh, abandoning her Jeep at the beach, were the actions of someone fully aware of what he had done. For Lauren's family, the details were almost unbearable. The brutality of the act, the way Nathan had tried to erase her, the cold silence he kept after being caught. Yet through their grief, they clung to one hope, that justice would not let him escape the truth. 18 months after Lauren Ashley's death, the courtroom became the stage for the battle over Nathaniel Fuja's fate. On the 13th of February, 2013, his trial began. From the very start, the defense admitted something shocking. Yes, Nathan had killed Lauren, but, they insisted, the real question was why and whether he had been sane when he did it. Their case leaned heavily on Nathan's mental state. They pointed to his severe depression, the repeated concussions he had suffered playing football, his isolation, his refusal of treatment. They argued that when Lauren came to his house that night, he entered a psychotic episode. According to the defense, Nathan acted without awareness, driven by an illness that clouded his judgment and left him unable to control himself. The prosecution, however, told a far darker story. To them, this was not insanity. This was revenge. Nathan had been calling Lauren repeatedly that day, pressing her to come over. He knew his parents wouldn't be home. He led her into the garage. He strangled her with an elastic cord. He slashed her throat. And afterward, he didn't collapse in confusion. He took steps to hide the evidence. He changed shoes, cleaned blood, abandoned her Jeep at the beach, and carried her body to the marsh, believing it would sink. These were not the actions of someone lost in madness. They were deliberate choices. Witnesses took the stand. Friends described Nathan's jealousy and his possessive behavior. Forensic experts testified about the blood evidence, the defensive wounds, the deliberate cleanup. A medical examiner revealed the most haunting truth. Lauren hadn't died instantly. She had been alive for minutes, bleeding out, fighting to hold on to life. The trial was agonizing for both families. Lauren's mother sat in silent grief as each detail of her daughter's final moments was laid bare. Nathan's parents, once so close to Lauren themselves, were shattered to see their son accused of such brutality. In the end, the jury sided with the prosecution. On the 7th of March 2013, Nathaniel Fuja was found guilty on all charges. The verdict carried a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Justice had been served, but for Lauren's family, no sentence could fill the hole left by the loss of their only child. When the sentence was read, the courtroom fell into a heavy silence. Nathaniel Fuja, once the bright, popular football star, was now condemned to spend the rest of his life in prison. In Massachusetts, a first-degree murder conviction carried no chance of parole. At just 20 years old, his life as he knew it was over. But for the Ashley family, the verdict brought little comfort. Their only child, a daughter filled with music, kindness, and promise, was gone forever. Justice had been served, yet their world remained broken. In a moment that stunned many, Lauren's father, Malcolm, crossed the courtroom and embraced Nathan's parents. He understood something that few could in such a moment. Both families had lost. One had lost a beloved daughter, the other a son they thought they knew. It was a gesture of forgiveness, or perhaps simply recognition of shared grief, a reminder of the devastation this tragedy had wrought on everyone. In the years that followed, Mary and Malcolm Ashley transformed their grief into action. They established the Lauren Ashley Memorial Foundation, dedicated to promoting the arts, community service, and healthy teen relationships, the very things Lauren herself had cherished. They spoke openly about the dangers of jealousy, control, and breakup violence, hoping that other young lives might be spared through education and awareness. Yet, their fight for justice was not over. In January 2024, the Massachusetts Supreme Court overturned a law requiring anyone under 20 at the time of their crime to serve life without parole. The ruling reopened a door the Ashleys never wanted to face: the possibility that Nathan Fuja could one day walk free. For them, the thought was unbearable. Their daughter's voice had been silenced forever. To imagine her killer reclaiming his life was to reopen the wound that had never truly healed. Lauren Ashley's story is one of beauty and tragedy intertwined. A young woman who gave so much: her voice, her time, her love was taken in an act of senseless violence. Yet her legacy lives on, not only in the memories of those who loved her, but in the foundation built in her name. And for those who hear her story, Lauren's life stands as both a warning and an inspiration: to cherish the people we love, to recognize the red flags we cannot ignore, and to never forget the cost of silence.